All right, traders, good afternoon. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and today is Friday, November 6th. So we are finally through, well, I don't want to say finally, but we are through the week. It's been a very busy week. It's been a very, very busy week on a lot of fronts, but especially if you've been a trader, kind of been knocked around the last couple weeks, and I think overall finished pretty good, right, for for the week. Today's price action, we'll go over that, but theme of the day, I would say, just a lot of big momentum out there. I think one of the things that stood out to me is just some of the names that reported last night really ran and had that momentum to them. Last week, it kind of didn't matter what numbers you put up last week. The market just was not going to reward in that situation. And, it's kind of just, I think, of course, a combination of things, but, a difference in sentiment, just a complete change around in the market's perception in about a week. So, that's just kind of how trading works. We'll talk a little bit about that too, and we'll try to keep this Friday video a little bit shorter than normal. I'll go over the week's performance too, which was astounding. But for the day, you could see that SPYs were flat. Again, I think that's kind of par for the course considering the moves that we've seen this week. The small caps underperformed a little bit. They were down 80 basis points. The Qs actually finished positive. They, I believe, were the kind of the worst performer in the overnight session, and you could see they rallied just 35 basis points, but at least it's something in the during the cash session. Gold, silver, looks like silver outperformed a little bit. I will put a red mark over here too for bonds. They moved back down, right? It was kind of one of, I don't want to say the missing link, but it was kind of one of those questions. Bonds were rallying along with equities this week until we got to the end of the week. I had actually tried a short TLT trade the other day and just took it off because I wasn't, I didn't have great short-term conviction in it, and I did put on a short-term trade. That's why I took it off. Let's just talk about the sector performance too, and then we'll get into some of the moves. But the pot stocks, they should really have a big green mark over here too. They were up huge today, and if you held some of these things, we did see CGC calls go up yesterday. I played that. I was actually in CGC for a lotto trade before we saw the calls hit, and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." We saw the calls hit, and it didn't even affect the price action. But they got that one right today because this group was up big today. The semis also continue with their strength. So I do want to go over a couple of these charts. So we'll stop here and then I'll kind of go into some of the underperformers too. So we'll talk about those. But first of all, let's go through a couple of charts that I covered already. You can see for the S&P, basically just sideways. A little bit of a move down at the end of the day, a pop up, and there was an MOC buy imbalance today. I don't think that's something that we've seen in about 2 weeks or so. I think 2+ weeks. There hasn't been one buy imbalance. Everything has been a sell imbalance. Interesting. You could see that red line that I've got drawn. That's just a custom trend line that I've got drawn. We are hitting that pivot point. That's also the top of value for the month. So 3497.5, and you kind of just have to stay tuned to see if we take that out. Do I think we could take that out and take out 52-week highs? I do. I think that's a possibility for next week. But I also could think that we digest a little bit too for a couple days too after a decent move. But the main takeaway, right? Because I don't make short-term predictions. Why don't I make short-term predictions? Because no one knows. No one has a crystal ball. But what I do know is that we are at that top of value resistance. So that's number one. And number two, something that I've been talking about in these videos for a while, for the last couple weeks, whether the wind is at your back or the wind is in your face. And remember a couple weeks ago when we broke into value, and sorry, this was back here. I'm going way too far back. Right? A couple weeks ago we broke below the 200 period moving average on the 1 hour chart, not the 200 daily moving average. But once we lost the short-term uptrend in the middle of October, it was a fight to kind of get it back, and clearly we retook that. And for now, for now, that trend, we're now back in a short-term uptrend. So yes, we are hitting some resistance, but I think the personality of the market has changed this week, right? Notice the hesitation, right? And this was the election night, right? Where we had back and forth a little bit of indecision, not only in the election but in where SPOOs wanted to go, where the S&P futures wanted to go. And once we kind of did that of course, all you needed again was the roadmap for the market webs. And once we broke this 3368, we basically just went up and to the right. So very nice price action. I wanted to talk a little bit about those pot stocks just for a minute. We went through these. We do, as it states over here, if you're not a member of Tribeca Trade Group, this is kind of what we do, right? Q&A Monday and Wednesday at 1 o'clock for members, and then we also go through on Friday, and we did almost a full hour today, just going over charts and different thoughts going into the weekend and for next weekend. But a couple things is I've talked about this CGC for a while, and let's see where this thing closed. Right, these pot stocks have been very difficult, but you kind of have a level to trade on that weekly chart. So 2112. I don't have anything on here. I did not decide to put anything on. All right, there we go. Sorry, I just had to pause the video there for a second. Yeah, so if you like pot stocks, for me, right, whatever you have an idea on based on something that you want to execute, right? It helps to have a level to back you up on. In this game of trading and investing, right? One thing that I've learned over time is that I'm going to be right with some trades, hopefully a lot more than the ones I'm going to be wrong on, but I am going to be wrong on some other trades too. Now, at least you have a level to trade against. Now, I know it's a little bit far down, but it is 2120. Maybe if you get some type of an inside week, that might be a better entry for you so that it's closer to the stop. But again, that's what it's all about. Putting together some trading ideas, using the technicals so that you know when you're going to be right or when you're going to be wrong. All right, so that's just something again that I think is, interesting that we just haven't seen for a while. Is finally these pot stocks that so many people have been watching are doing something different as a group. Now this GRWG is the best of the best in terms of the performance, and maybe you just want to stick with relative strength too. Not that expensive, $23 stock. All right, so that's my thoughts on the performers. The best performer of the day, the semiconductor group, continues to act very well. How can you not look at this and say that this is something that's kind of bullish for the market, right? Semiconductors, which I've heard a lot of people try to make the argument that the semiconductors are kind of the new transports, right? In the old days, people would look at the Dow Industrials and the Dow Transports. People think now that possibly the semiconductors are kind of more of that confirming, but this is very strong to see something like this, and a lot of different names are firing now, on all cylinders. Our MRVL was the name that saw a lot of call activity today. Monster move for MRVL, cuts all the way back through the top of value, but other stocks in this group, Nvidia almost made a 52-week high today, up another 16 points. Again, look how fast that happens, right? Basically went down for the better course of 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden within a couple days it's back to new highs. So AMD, both of these have been seeing a little bit of call activity this week. Just again, a very strong group. Taiwan Semi also looks ready too, right? That's another name that has spent some time consolidating in an uptrend too. So, you got some really, really nice strength going on in that group. Just to look at the underperformers, because you can see to the bottom left of my screen, the market breadth was not super, super strong, I would say, for today. And if you look at some things, I was actually looking at the banks this morning. They were on my watch list because, look at this move in bonds, which is now, right? Usually there is that relationship. Notice that the bonds have now failed at the 200-day moving average. They're still in value, but they're definitely leaning to the downside here in bonds. Now, again, when that happens, usually the banks do a little bit better, but it was not the bank's day. So we talked about that too, that the banks are not really a group to chase. They seem to always come back to you a little bit. So just kind of putting it out there. From time to time, the last couple of weeks, I thought that we might see a rally in the banks. Just like I've said before, you got to have some ideas, and then you can kind of go, and verify those ideas with the price action and the technicals. Right now, we're just, the banks are just not doing it. And remember, I talked a lot earlier in the week about some of the moves that were kind of heating up prior to the election. And we talked about what happened in the 2016 election, right? Each event is going to be a little bit different. I had all these things kind of watching to see if we would see those similar moves. It doesn't look like those same themes are playing out, right? Except for maybe, rates going up, but it kind of remains to be seen. It's also kind of early too. All right, and energy names were down. Also, biotech. It could be that there's some. Earlier in the week, it looked like it was going to go one way in terms of Congress. Right now, it's not so sure that it's not 100% sure that the Republicans are going to maintain or hold the Senate, right? I believe that's a big thing going on in Georgia right now. I'm not an expert on any of this stuff, but just something I heard could be why that biotech has kind of given back some of those gains. Still, I would call that consolidating in an uptrend as well, but they did give back some of those gains and basically coming back into where they were a couple days ago. All right, so that's that group. I'll talk about the overall performance. I just wanted to mention maybe two or three trades or two or three stocks for you to keep your eye on for next week. DuPont, I'm in this name. I think it's one of those things where for now, I have to just exercise some patience here because I am seeing some call activity in DuPont, but it just hasn't broken out yet. So I'll stay patient. There's no there's no sell signal yet, but the buy signal hasn't exactly been triggered. It has to close above 60.04. So trying my patience a little bit, but that's okay. A couple other names, right? All this stuff with solar names going super hot this week, as well as Chinese vehicle companies that were super, super hot. Tesla's been very quiet. I would keep an eye on, if you want a level, and this is a level that I have an alert set, no position in my trading account yet. I do own this in the tactical portfolio, but 444 is the level to watch, or 445, right? We break that and notice how fast these stocks are moving. So, to keep an eye on some of these things, obviously you can't, catch all these moves by flipping around charts, right? Set an alert at 445. That's where I will get involved in Tesla to the upside. Sticking with cars, Carvana. This was a new one that I pieced into today. And again, I also own this in the tactical portfolio, but also just getting into value. I think this is another nice name here. Had earnings last week that was fine. Whipsaw move. As long as it's going to stay above 211, 212, right? The new value area for next week. This thing has a shot, right, to get going, right? So there's a couple names that I'm watching for next week. Of course, what we will do is put out this weekend a watch list for members, right? And I will be doing that trade for next week. Again, these are the three programs that basically how I trade, right? Trading account, of course. I have the TTG trend portfolio, which did really well today because I've got things like Zillow in there. I've got things like Cloudflare, Net that did very well today, and Square as well. Where did all these things close for the day? Right, I had an earnings trade on that worked beautifully in Square today. Right, here's this. I did not hold it on for the full gains, but that's fine. Here's my Square trade. Out of Square 430, paid 137 for this trade. Also played a little bit of Roku day trading today. So this was nice to get some trades. Not every trade worked. I thought Beyond might have a chance to go today. Looked good on the first 5 minute bar or so. Um, let's see. Yeah, finished flat. Nothing going on in the name. Um, tried here on the opening and thought we could maybe see 162 today, but it did not have did not was not a name that had the momentum. All right. So that's the trades for the day. Crowd also hit a target in that one. All right. Just so you could see all these trades. Stopped out of HCNP. Again, just wasn't doing what I wanted it to do. So that idea did not work. That's fine. Let's talk about this week's performance really quick, and then we'll end the video. So here's last week's performance, right? I always kind of like to look at last week's performance as because I forget. But remember, the week before, SPY was down 5.5%. The Qs were down about the same. IWM was about down 6.1%. Look at the difference this week, right? So some of these names, like some of these areas, SPY was up 7.2% for the week. The Qs were up 9.4%. So that was really your standout, almost up 10% for the week. It's incredibly strong. Bonds were still up even though they sold off today. They were up 1.2% for the week. Gold was up 4% for the week. And look at the best performers, semis. Gold miners, too, in there. It's something different, up 10%. Internet names were strong after they were weak last week, of course. Solar, very strong. Overall tech, Chinese internets were up 8.2%. Even with that little give back in healthcare today, still up 8%. Retail was strong. Materials, just a lot of very good breadth for the week. Day by day, we had a couple of hiccups with breadth. I think it was maybe Wednesday that it was a little bit weak. But overall for the week, strong, right? Energy did not perform this week. Banks also underperformed for the week. We're only up 0.5% for the week. All right, and then interesting some of the names on the international list that were up. You had a lot of areas that were up 9, and some of them up over 10% for the week. Look at Italy in there, right? Italy reporting like a record amount of coronavirus cases today, up 12% for the week. So interesting. Is price telling us something there? Sweden, France, overall Europe up 9.5%. Remember, that was one of the issues last week. Was Europe was very weak last week. Not so much this week, very strong. All right, guys, we'll leave it there. And again, if you want to be a member and get these types of things where we do put out that watch list going into the week, I do buy that watch list on Monday morning, and I hold it for the week. I did not do it this week because of the election. I held SPY all week long, which worked out quite fine. But next week I will be going back into individual names for that third program that I've got listed there. All right, guys, have a wonderful weekend. I put this also, up by the theme of the day to get some rest a bit this weekend. Right? There's a lot of this week. Your head was on a swivel in terms of some of these names that moved as big as they moved this week. Right? So it's important to get a little bit of time away from the screens, give your mind, a break, right? And maybe even get some exercise in there too. It'll do you wonders going into next week, because I think you got to be fresh for that one too as well. All right, guys, have a great week, and I'll see you guys on Monday.